from here, we're gonna turn it over and roll right into our next session coming up from Floyd Jones about 5 ways to crush your next fundraising campaign. So before that, there is going to be another $50 drawing for another drawing for a $50 Amazon gift card if you bring a friend to the summit. So if you share the summit, get a friend to actually register, you will be entered in for a chance to win a $50 gift card, and that will be announced in our wrap-up session at the end of today. So all you have to do, share that link and they can sign up. Let us know, just email support@causevox.com with the name and email of your friend that you got to register, and you will be entered to win. So still a bunch more sessions before 5 o'clock when that drawing is going to take place. So keep the sharing coming. All right. Well, I'm so excited to have Floyd Jones back again today. He participated in our discussion around equity yesterday, and that was an amazing, amazing session. And now today, Floyd is back. He is the Director of Development at Volo City Kids Foundation, and I would say an expert in growing digital fundraising. And so he's run a bunch of peer-to-peer campaigns specifically, also other types of campaigns and online fundraising. So Floyd, we're so happy to have you. Thank you again for coming back.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here, and I'm so happy to be speaking with everyone today. Can you hear me?
Yeah, sounds great.
Okay, just want to make sure that we're all squared away. All right, let me share my screen with everybody.
Perfect, sounds good.
Okay, can you see my screen?
Yeah, it looks great.
All right, guys. So as Candace mentioned, my name is Floyd Jones, and I am the Director of Development for the Volo Kids Foundation, and I'll be your host today. Today, the main goal really is simple. I want to help you guys learn how to crush your fundraising campaigns. I've been doing fundraising in one way or another for the past 8 years, and I've learned a few things and a few tips that I'm so excited to be able to share with everyone today. Here are the 5 tips. You need to mobilize your tribe. You need to organize your tribe. You need to harness your creativity and specificity. You need to meet the moment, and you need to follow up with your donors. And then we have a special bonus one. I like the way that five ways rolled off the tongue, so I just had a little bonus in there for you guys. So when I was a senior in college, I actually did a research project in South Africa, and it completely changed my life. I worked with an organization called the Bokamoso Life Center in a small city called Winterveld. Winterveld is a small township where the unemployment rate is over 50%. There's high rates of crime and teenage pregnancy, and HIV/AIDS impacts roughly 25% of the community. In a place that many looked over, this center is a source of hope and light. It always amazed me how such a small team was able to impact the lives of so many youth with such limited resources. Since 1999, when the organization was founded, they've been able to impact the lives of over 1,300 youth. They've taught them life skills to help them gain employment, go on to college, and live healthy and productive lives. But it wasn't just the curriculum that struck a chord with me, it was the culture. Every morning, the youth would circle up and perform original poetries and sing songs. And this song was actually one of my favorites. It goes like this. Going back to my roots, going back to my roots, going back to my roots. I love my culture, going back to my roots, going back to my roots, going back to my roots. This song would always remind me of what was possible, to love the cloth that I was cut from, and to do all that I could to help others love themselves and make the most out of the life that they have been given. It was that same love that sparked my passion for fundraising and sparked the creativity for what happened next. Towards the end of my trip, I learned that the organization was coming on some hard times financially, that they needed to raise funds to keep the organization going strong. The foundation that supports the organization planned a tour to the United States to be able to raise money and keep the center open. I knew that I had to help. So I mobilized and supported the efforts, and they ended up raising close to $100,000 to fund the center and provide scholarships for youth to go to college. In that moment, I didn't have a 5-point strategy to crush my campaign. I just had my passion. But so often when it comes to fundraising and supporting efforts that mean a lot to us, we can go from this, we all been there, to this. And we often feel burned out, stressed out, and run down. Raise your hand in the chat if you know what I'm talking about. And by the way, this is gonna be an interactive session, so I'm gonna need you to talk back to me. We're gonna have polls, it's gonna be great. But I've been there before. I've been to the place where I've said, I can't raise another dollar, I can't organize another campaign, and I am just tired. But what if there was another way? What if we could allow ourselves to build a system that runs on more than just fumes? A system built for sustainable growth. Well, I believe that while there is no perfect formula, there are practices we can employ to continue our growth while also maintaining our health and our mindset. So y'all ready to jump in? Okay. So the first point is to mobilize your tribe. So I work for the Volo Kids Foundation. The mission is to use play to build communities of active, resilient, and confident kids. Our vision is to unlock the power of play for every kid, everywhere. It's a big and lofty goal, and it's quite frankly hard to do when you have nobody else on board. I actually remember the early days of our organization where I played and I wore so many different hats and I played so many different roles, which I'm sure many of you guys can relate. It was just myself and our president. And I knew that in order to grow, in order to do what we wanted to do, we needed to get people on board, and we had to start with the people that we had. I actually remember when Giving Tuesday came around, I said, hey, we should probably do something for Giving Tuesday. And everyone looked at me and they were like, yeah, you're probably right. But I had no clue what I was going to do. I actually remember even thinking, okay, well, I had to mobilize our volunteers. I had to get people to volunteer and fundraise for us. I actually found the first original document that I made when planning an end of year campaign. And I said, we need at least 10 volunteers to fundraise for us. Our initial goal was to raise $15,000, but I honestly didn't even think we'd be able to raise $10,000. But I knew that if I had people with me, I knew if I was able to bring people along, that there was more that we could do together. That year, we ended up surpassing our first fundraising campaign. And I'm sure Candace remembers this well because I was pretty much on the phone with her every single day. But we ended up raising over $21,000. We had 193 donors and we had 28 fundraisers. That moment, I said, okay, I need to take a step back. And I need to evaluate how we got here and what happened. So I realized after digging into the data that 75% of the dollars that we raised came from a fundraiser. So the following year, I decided to double down and I grew the number of fundraisers. So the next year, I said we needed more. We had 66 fundraisers and over 411 donors. And we were able to raise over $55,000. And then we did it again. So I said, let's just continue in this same trend. And we were able to mobilize over 100 fundraisers and secure over 563 donations. And we were able to raise over $83,000 in just a month and a half. It amazed me. One thing I started to learn is the importance of bringing people together for collective action. One of my favorite African proverbs to continue in the same theme is that if you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, go together. So you might be thinking, okay, that sounds great. Like, that's amazing, but I don't have a tribe. But the truth is you actually do. And it's up to you to mobilize them. So our first activity, it's activity time. Take 30 seconds. If you're figuring out how to build a potential donor list, I want you to write out as many names in your immediate sphere as you can think of. Friends, family, co-workers. No name is off limits. So let's see who can write down the most names. Ready? And then I want you to put the number that you got in the chat, okay? Ready, set, go. Got a little music too. "15 seconds. I hope this music is inspiring you. 10 seconds. 5 seconds. All right. I hope you got some good numbers in there. Put those numbers in the chat and let's see how you guys are able to do. So you have to start there. All those people on your list, you might be saying, okay, well, maybe this person can't give, or maybe this person doesn't know what to do. Don't worry about that. When you're figuring about how to mobilize your tribe, you got to start with people who are in your sphere, okay? And once you do that and you feel like you run out of names, ask each of those people to make their own sphere, and those people can make their own sphere, and you keep going. That is the power of peer-to-peer. But then when you figure that out, you got to go to point 2, which is organizing your tribe. So it's not enough just to bring people together. You need to actually lead them somewhere, because without vision, people perish. So here are the 4 ways, and we're going to dig into these a little bit deeper, of how to actually organize your tribe. You need to establish teams. Once you have your list that you guys just made, establish your teams. For us, we're in 6 cities across the country, so it's easier for us to kind of mobilize people, but we weren't always that way. So figure out the people who you wrote down on that list and group them together with like similarities. Then select a team leader. You gotta pick a strong team captain to lead the group to victory. You gotta equip the teams. So don't leave teams to just figure it out on their own. Give them the tools that they need to succeed. And then incentivize them. People love a good prize, so spark some friendly competition and let them loose. So first, I want to talk about establishing teams. So as I mentioned, our organization is in 6 cities across the country. And as you can see, everyone wants to be the best city around. People like to see that. And that's one of the things that I love about CauseVox, is that it puts the people front row center. It puts the numbers that they're raising right up front, and it shows you in real time the progress that is being made. And whenever people were wondering how their progress was doing, I remember people would refresh their pages and keep looking in real time to see what city was in the lead. Do that, establish these teams, group people up, and then let them know, hey, this city is coming up. You know, I never put people against each other, but I always kind of say, hey, this city is doing well. What can you guys do? You know, encourage them in that friendly way. And then make sure you have a team leader as well. I always make sure for ease, and remember, this is about crushing your campaign is not about your sure might and strength. It's about making sure that you have other people alongside you to help you share that burden. So the first thing that I always do is I put somebody in charge. For our organization, one of the things that I decided to do is create a junior board in all of our cities and make sure that I have people who are around, people who are on board and who are encouraged, and knew that, hey, you have a little bit of leadership responsibility. Those people I put on as leaders in each city, and then I also put, you know, other superstar volunteers in each city. You might be wondering, you know, how am I going to find a team leader? Just ask, you know what I mean? That's the simplest way. Ask them. Find the connection, find somebody who has continued to be a part of your organization, who's volunteered for your organization over and over, or maybe it's even a donor who's given to your organization multiple times. And then you also want to make it clear to them what you're asking them to do. I was very, very clear. I said, hey, every single person on your team has 10 members. I want to make sure that every single person of your team raises $500. If you can do this, you get a fancy dinner from me. Or if you can do this, you get something else from me. But making it very, very clear. And then also connecting that money and connecting that amount to a specific cause and saying, hey, if you guys are able to raise $500 per person, you're going to be able to help my organization do X, Y, Z. And that is why they're involved with your mission, your organization for the first place. It's about the mission. And then obviously make the ask. Also, don't forget to equip your teams. So I make sure that I give every single team a fundraising toolkit. And I make it very, very clear. And here are the various things that I make sure to put in every single toolkit. So I make sure to add goals. I make sure that everyone knows what the goal of the campaign is and specifically what I am asking of them. I put out clear directions as to how to do it. So I make sure I add the website link, the day that I'm asking them to do everything. For us, we typically rally around Giving Tuesday. However, our end of year campaign lasts the entire month of November and December. But I make it very, very clear what I'm asking people to do because as you know, people have short attention spans and they're not all focused on the things that we're focused on. So make it incredibly easy and simple for them to follow along. Also provide approved photos. So one thing that I love the heart and the passion of people. They're, posting, pictures on their cell phones and all that different stuff. However, if I'm trying to make sure I'm communicating a clear vision, I actually put approved photos for people to be able to use as stock images and make it very simple for them. Again, people are gonna go into your toolkit, they're gonna click on a link, and then they're gonna send it accordingly. They're not gonna do much thinking on their own to craft the messaging on their own. If you find people who do, those probably are next team leaders, but make it easy for a majority of people by just having everything laid out, approved, and ready to go. And then lastly, have sample messaging. Same kind of vein as the approved photos, make it easy for your team. Some of the things that I do, and feel free, you guys are gonna get these slides, so feel free to take or modify accordingly. But I give out sample social media messaging. I also let people know what our account handles are as well, so they can make sure that they tag them. And I give out sample email messaging as well, and make sure that that's also very clear. I let them know all the talking points. I let them know exactly where they need to enter their names in, and just make it very, very clear. And then I incentivize everybody. So for us, one of the campaigns that we're hosting right now is a virtual 5K because we were a part of the New York City Marathon, but as you guys know, many different things across the country have been canceled due to COVID-19. So we said, okay, well, let's just do it ourselves and let's figure out how we can make a virtual race of our own. And one of the things that we did was we reached out to the company On Running, and they actually are one of our corporate sponsors for the campaign. And so they're actually giving out free pairs of On Running shoes to our top finishers, and we're raffling off some shoes as well. We also have gifts from Starbucks and Amazon, and we have custom swag as well. But all these little things go a long way. So one thing that I have learned is that people are not giving to your cause just because of what they can get. It's not like if I do this, I can get that. I want to make that very clear. People don't give just to get. However, when you add a little prize, it's kind of like the sprinkle on top. It's kind of like the cherry on top to get people going, especially for your fundraisers. I definitely do this, especially for my fundraisers. I want to incentivize them a little bit more and say, hey, you're working hard and I want to let you know that I see you, I appreciate you, and I want to honor you. And here are opportunities for me to be able to do that. A quick aside, I want to go into corporate partners just a little bit, just because I know that this is something that is really important. And a lot of people are wondering, how can I actually get these corporate partners and how do I actually, see them? So step one is to do your research. And I've been lucky enough to work with a couple of organizations like Nike and NBA 2K and Kind throughout my time here at Volo, at the Volo Kids Foundation. But one thing that I always do is research. So I always find what organizations are looking to support causes like mine and how are we actually aligned with them. I actually have multiple spreadsheets for each city that we operate in of the top philanthropic companies in each city. If you look at any city's business journal, you can find this information and usually download it for a couple dollars. But I do that first and also look at what other brands are aligned with what we're doing. And then I connect and I cultivate relationships. So another thing that's super, super important is that it's a relationship. A corporate partnership is a serious relationship that you need to invest time in. It's not just like something you can, pull on a string and get funding. So I actually try to connect and see who am I connected with? Do I have anybody on my board who might be connected with them? Or have I met them at an event or something along those lines? And if not, how can you make a connection with them and build a real relationship with them? And then after I've done all those different things, then I actually go ahead and I make the ask. Corporate partners are typically looking for visibility. They want to be able to be seen by your base. They're trying to figure out how can they make the maximum amount of impact with their dollars because we don't have unlimited budgets to go around. And they're looking for turnkey packages. And so as I began to, understand and learn these things, I started to do the work ahead of time and put together, little packages. And I said, okay, hey, here are the various things that I need to do and what I need to find. And make sure you remember, don't tailor your organization to a specific funding request. Find the people who want to fund what you are doing authentically, because those are the ones that are going to be the longest lasting partnerships. I use NBA 2K for an example. We started with them to build, we had a campaign to build a new basketball court in Baltimore City for youth. And because we were so intertwined with the relationship and with the connection, that relationship has lasted over 3 years with that organization. So make sure you're very clear on the things that you want to be funded, and you're very clear on the campaigns and the goals of those campaigns. And you will find people who want to come alongside you and rally alongside you. And that's the best kind of relationship. And make sure, give me one. All right, so now we have another activity time, which means more music. Based off of the list that you just made, how many teams can you are there any corporate contacts you have in your network that you can bring on board as well for that campaign? Let's see who can build the most teams, and bonus if you have any corporate teams in mind. All right, another 30 seconds I'm putting on the clock. Go. But I'm frozen in motion, and my head tells me to stop, feeling, I feel about us. 15 seconds. Try to fight it, but it's never enough. Cause I'm frozen in motion, and my head tells me to stop, but my heart goes. 8 seconds. 5 seconds. All right. I hope you guys were able to find some cool teams and organize some cool teams. All right. So the next point that I find to be very, very important is harness your creativity and specificity. So you might be thinking, all right, so I made my list. I know who I'm going to reach out to. I was able to organize a team, and I even got a company involved. So what now? But you also might be wondering, how am I going to get these people to continue giving? Well, I have a few thoughts on that. So this is me. You might be thinking, wow, Floyd was an incredibly cute child. And yes, you are correct. But even deeper, typically when you see a picture of someone you care about, especially as a young child, your initial reaction is, aw. Well, I use the aw effect to at least get people's attention and to keep them engaged year after year. So our first year, our campaign really well, but our second year I said, okay, how are we going to switch this up? How are we going to get people to give again? And I said, not only am I going to use my picture of when I was a child playing sports, but I'm going to mobilize all of my fundraisers as well. So on Giving Tuesday, to try to cut through the noise, everyone make their profile picture a picture of them as a child playing sports. One, it's a way to connect your fundraising to your cause and your mission, but it's also a way to get people's attention and stop them and have them start paying attention. And that actually resulted in us raising even more money, as I showcased earlier. And it resulted in people actually being able to tell the story about why they care about the organization even more. You don't need to post a picture of yourself as a child for your organization, but do post about something that is relevant to your cause and makes sense for you, and also makes sense for others. So no matter what we do as an organization at Volo Kids, we always bring it back to the kids that we're serving, because that is why we exist, to make play possible for every kid everywhere. And at the end of the day, it's my job to let my donors know how many kids they are making play possible for. And the same goes for you. Your entire campaign should surround around this topic. One thing I always highlight, and the thing that I always love, is that CauseVox always highlights like that impact metric, and it's right there front row center for all of your donors to be able to see. So the same thing needs to go for you guys, set a clear goal. What is it that you're trying to raise, and what is that money going towards? And can you prove that you're actually doing this? Can you prove that you're actually making that impact and showcasing that impact? And it's also, I'm going to be honest, it's hard to do all of this on your own. So one thing that I wanted to throw in there is like a little bit of a tidbit of how I try to manage our development team and manage the people who are supporting our work. And let's be perfectly honest, when I started, it was me. Again, we didn't have anybody helping us. We didn't have any support. We didn't have any development team. So this can also work for your interns. This can also work for volunteers. The thing that I love, and one thing that really helped our junior boards as well grow across the country, is that we had volunteers who couldn't be on the field, but they said, hey, I do finance for my job, or hey, I'm an event planner. Can I help in that way? The answer should always be yes. But what you need to do is work yourself off in advance to make a plan and say, okay, hey, these are the various projects that I need to do. These are all the various projects that are waiting in the wings, waiting and making my needs known. And when someone comes, then I'm able to put them into practice. I'm able to utilize them. So the first thing I was going to say was utilize the strengths of your team. One person on my really loves data. So I have that person help me with donor segmentation. And I have another person on my team who loves sponsorships and finding partnerships. So I have that person support me in corporate outreach. And then also distribute, build out timelines, and have your team break up projects amongst each other. Remember, again, as I mentioned, if you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, go together. Our fourth point is meet the moment. So something that I really just wanted to take a second to say is that we are in a time of truly unprecedented unrest. Just a few days ago, Jacob Blake, an unarmed Black man, was 7 times in the back. If there is ever a time for change in our country, it is right now. We can't solely rely on the government to impact our communities, and we can't solely rely on private sector to impact our communities. We need each of you here on this call at this conference. You are the hands and the feet pushing change forward, and your donors support you because they know this to be true. But it's up to us to give an outlet to get involved. So meet the moment. When COVID-19, was heavily unfolding, Giving Tuesday Now was actually launched, and we had to move all of our programs virtually. We needed to adapt our curriculum, hire and train new staff, change our strategy, and we just, quite frankly, we asked our donors to help us and to get involved. Not only did they, but we were able to provide free virtual sports programs to over 1,000 children, and we're still growing that today. The truth is, your donors want to get involved, and it's up to us to be the bridge in which they can. But here are the 3 gotta be's to making sure that you can actually meet the moment. You have to be timely. So when crisis arises, take a moment to reflect and respond. And this is something that I actually do for my life in general. I call it the 3 A's. 1 is awareness. So what's actually happening? Adjustment. So now that I know what's happening for me and around me, I can adjust accordingly. And action. How am I going to now put something into place to make a change? The same thing goes when I'm working with my donors and in development. We have to become aware of how this is impacting our organization. How are we going to adjust our strategy accordingly? AKA for us, it was changing to become a more virtual organization, providing virtual programs, and we put it into action. We launched a campaign, we applied for grants, we worked with different partners, and then a lot of donors even reached out and asked us, hey, how can we support you in this moment? Sometimes you have to just be honest and say the best way to get involved is to contribute or to spread the word, because that's what we need right now. We need to be able to mobilize so we can get other people on board. 2 is urgency. So creating deadlines for when you need to hit goals is so important, and so important for your supporters to become aware of. One thing I've seen time and time again is giving countdowns actually works. You might be thinking, I feel like I'm annoying my donors, or I feel like I'm annoying my email base, but you're actually not. for our most recent campaign that we're working with right now, we literally doubled our donations in 2 days when we were saying, hey, this is starting on Monday. Hey, this is starting tomorrow. And just really giving them that countdown and giving them that reminder. And then also, you need to make sure that you're relevant. Make sure that the cause that you're talking about and the issue that's going on in your community matches the campaign that you're promoting. Don't just, use something. My biggest pet peeve is when people use something as just like a marketing ploy. Don't just use something, in a crisis that's going on in your community just for your advantage. Say, hey, this is what's going on in our community, and I need your support to join us and join this organization and actually contributing lasting change. People can see right through, being fake. We want authenticity at this time. And then lastly is follow up with your donors. So we have a fun poll question, quiz time. And Candace, do you have the poll? Okay, perfect. So what is the industry average for donor retention? A, 65%, B, 21%, C, 43%, or D, 100%, meaning everybody gives again. If they give once, they're gonna give again. What do you think is the industry average for donor retention rates?
Lots of responses coming in. We'll give it another second or two.
Okay.
Get to at least 250. All right, so I'm gonna close it out. Oh, a few more coming in. All right, this looks good. Ending
Okay.
and sharing.
All right, the answer, did it share the, okay, perfect. Wow, we got it. Y'all got it just by a little bit. So the answer is 43%, which is, it means it's good, but it also means that we have work to do. CauseVox actually did a great report on this that they published in January. So if you want to check out their archives, do so. But it means that we have some work to do in this field and in this arena. And I thought it was very, very interesting. So I want to just do a quick deep dive a little bit in donor retention and making sure that we talk about that. So I call it AIIA. I love a good acronym. You'll learn that about me. But one is acknowledge. So you need to acknowledge the donor's gift. Thank them for the amount that they gave and the campaign that they gave to. Bonus if you give them a handwritten letter. B is invite them. So any campaigns or events that are coming up, invite them to take part in, even if it's free. Actually, sometimes if it's free, it might be even better because you want them to be able to acknowledge and be a part of what's going on actively. Inform them. So let them know the impact of their gift and how they specifically advance your cause. Let them know, hey, because you gave X, Y, and Z dollars, 10 more children are able to play for free. Thank you very much. And then lastly, ask them. When the time is right, ask them to support your cause again. This actually varies. It varies between what kind of donor group and what donor segmentation group you're reaching out to. But make sure you feel free to ask them again. It's never too late to ask people to make a second follow-up, especially if a few months have passed. And if they care about your organization and you're letting them know what's going on, they're gonna want to support what you're doing. I actually heard a little bit of this in your last session about donor segmentation, which is very, very good. So I'm just gonna breeze by this a little bit quickly and give you guys a little bit of just like a highlight of what I do for donor segmentation. So one is I categorize donors. So between donors, fundraisers, recurring donors, or people who go to special events. I build donor profiles. And if you're looking for something in regards to, okay, what should I have in my profile? Here are the various things that I pull reports on every quarter. So, who gave another gift in that quarter, who is brand new? So do we have any new donors to our organization? Who relapsed in donating? And then who gave at this time last year? And then I communicate accordingly. So each of the above groups deserves different communication and I give them that specific communication. I wanted to just go through some of the things that I love about CosVox. So one of the things that CosVox has, I'm not sure if you guys know about this, with the community tab, it shows you all of your donors. So I just took a screenshot from our donor, our back end. These are the different individual donors that we have. These are the different fundraisers that we have in our system, the amount of recurring donors that we have, etc. So use that. If you haven't used that before in CosVox, use it. It's great. Also, donor profiles. So every single person in that community tab has their own profile. And it will also show you every single time they received a donation or every single time they made a donation. It will give you their email. It will give anything that you are collecting from your community. It will show up in their donor profile. I even add special notes. I don't have any notes here because this is me, but I add special notes to donors if I need reminders. And these are all things that people can pull reports on, even with or without you. They can pull reports and they can make, they can understand what's going on with your donor community from there. And then also you can send email in the system. So my organization personally uses HubSpot, and we use things like, we use HubSpot, and we use, MailChimp, and a lot of different other systems to kind of track our donors and track our donor base. But if you don't have all those different things, you can use CosVox, and you can send an email directly in the platform itself. These are real functions that they created for us. So take advantage of them, people, because they're like gold. And one thing, like if someone misses a recurring donation, that's another thing that I check is who lapsed in donations. I will send them an email right directly through the system and say, hey, I noticed that your credit card, you stopped donating. Is there anything I can do to help to get you back involved? And whenever possible, plan ahead. I know, from someone who has worked with small teams, I know how hard it can be. I know how strapped we are. I know how, busy things can be. And I know how many priorities that we have to face. So whenever possible, plan ahead. I always say things will go wrong. It's not about like if they'll go wrong, it's they will go wrong. So do your best to build your development calendar in advance. I try to build out my development calendar a year in advance. And then I visit it every single quarter. When I'm pulling those donor reports, I'm saying, okay, does this match what I actually made a plan for? And if not, where do we need to change? What do we need to alter accordingly? And how can we go from there? And my bonus point, this one wasn't on there, but be authentic and remember your why. I think for me, something that I often struggled with was imposter syndrome and wondering, can I actually do this? We have a big mission, and this year we're serving about 12,000 kids across the country. And I said, how am I ever going to be able to raise this money? How am I ever going to be able to, make an impact and make a tangible difference in this organization and in the lives of our kids? But whenever I get flustered, whenever I get thrown off track, I just remember why I started this in the beginning. I go back to my roots, as I sang in the beginning. I remember where I came from. I remember the smiles. I remember the impact, and I remember my past, so I can create and pave a pathway for a great future. And I know that if you guys employ these strategies, you can do the same thing as well. So that's to say, I want to do a quick plug for CosVox, because CosVox has truly changed my life, changed the shape of our organization. It's helped me do my job better. So I will continue singing their praises forevermore. But now I just wanted to open up the floor. If there was any questions, I wanted to use this as a time to learn and grow together. So are there any questions, Candace?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, Floyd. Everything you said was so good. The chat was like blowing up. Everyone's like, Floyd, you are so amazing. So thank you for that amazing presentation. There's a ton of questions. I've seen people requesting access to the slides, so I'll just kind of start off with that one. So would you want to share the slides with everybody in the chat or afterwards?
Yeah. How do I change it? Do I just email you or?
Yeah, you can just email me and I can get it out to everybody.
Yeah.
And then similarly, some people were asking for the toolkit. Do you mind if I share? I actually have it pulled up in front of me. Do you mind if I share the link to your toolkit as an example?
Oh yeah, do you have our toolkit?
Yeah, I have it.
Yeah,
I have it queued up. So I'll share that. But while I get the link out to that. There's tons of great questions. So, all right. So, Cedar Davis asks, I feel nervous asking businesses, especially local, to support events because of the current pandemic and the losses many of them are experiencing. What is your advice for this year with partners and being respectful and asking at this time?
Yeah, that's a good question. It was so funny because when everything started going, awry and things were, sparking, it was like, how do we do this? How do we navigate the waters? How do we make an impact? But still understanding that, hey, we need to really mobilize our donors, because even for us on a personal standpoint, we work with a lot of our city governments in each of our cities. And so we get contracts from them. And so obviously when this ended, when all COVID-19 was being sparked, a lot of that funding stopped and really paused. And so I said, we might as well ask. At the end of the day, people can say no. And my philosophy in life is just ask. The answer is always no until you open up your mouth. So I just asked and I said, hey, and we came from an authentic place too. It wasn't like, hey, let's use this as an opportune time. It was truly authentic and truly saying, we need this support. Can you support us? And we were blown away by how many people wanted to get involved, how many people came and reached out and said, how can I help? How can my company volunteer? How can my organization make an impact with you guys? And we were so blown away. And we have been able to just continue to go throughout this process. So I know it can feel a little nerve-wracking, but I remember your mission. I always go back to remember your why. Go back to your roots. Remember what it is that you're doing and why it is that you're doing it, and ask them if they can wait. Because a lot of times the people who are feeling the impact and the brunt impact of COVID-19 and all of all the unrest that we're facing in society right now are the people that we were created to support. So remember that, and reach out to your base knowing that.
Awesome. And then there's another question that is just, what is the role of fundraisers and what kind of qualities do they need to have for you to activate them to become fundraisers?
Oh, good question. I've been trying to find this out for a little bit. One thing is, it all goes back to relationships. So I guess for me, it's a little bit easier to just try to make a relationship and talk to somebody and build that connection. But even I always say that you don't need to be an extroverted person to build a relationship. Data can actually tell you a lot. So we try to collect a lot of data in our organization. I always try to find that, okay, maybe it's a volunteer. How many times is this volunteering with my organization over and over again? If you notice that there are, one for us, we operate in seasons. So I noticed that there were a few volunteers who just volunteer with us every single season. And I said, hey, I noticed that you love what we do. Can you also fundraise for us? Can you help other people fall in love with what we do? And even if you don't think you're a good fundraiser, because a lot of people are like, oh, I hate asking for money. That's where the toolkit comes in. You make it easy for them and say, don't worry, you don't even need to do that. Copy and paste this. Because at the end of the day, people sometimes feel like, oh, if I'm asking for money, I'm doing the wrong thing, or I feel kind of grimy or something. But no, it's really, you're just sharing your passion and you're sharing what you love with other people around you. And if people love you, they're gonna try to support what you love as well. And so just making that known and just sharing that to the world is always so important. So I always try to tell fundraisers that. So one is, are they getting involved with your organization? Two is, what kind of background do they have? So we have a lot of people who love planning events, or we're in fraternities and sororities in college, or, they oversee their company's volunteer organization. So those kinds of people who have those kind of qualities, you want to try to bring them into your fold and have them be evangelists for your organization so that they can spread the word for you. And I think one of the first things that I realized early on was that if I'm going to be successful in fundraising, I can't do this by myself. I have to find other people, train other people, and bring other people along who want to help spread this word with me as well, so we can do this together.
Absolutely. That is perfectly said. And just so everyone gets a sense of where you're coming from, I know you mentioned it earlier, but what is the size of your team at your organization, and specifically just like the development team? So how many people work with you?
Yeah, so I have two people who work with me directly, but they also split their time with programs. So we're still a really small organization. We only have 5 full-time staff members at our organization. We have a lot of people who work, with us contract as well. But we've been able to double our team in just a year and a half, which has been really exciting to see, and we're continuing to grow. But then also a little bit about our organization. We're a part of a larger for-profit entity. And one thing that was interesting was that they used to fund our organization 100%, but now they really just get involved with us like through support. So we use some of their part-time staff to help us with, implementing fundraising campaigns, or we use their part-time staff to help us with recruitment when we're recruiting kids in our various cities. So it's all about being small and nimble. You know what I mean? You got to get crafty when you have a small team, but we've been able to make it work.
Yeah, no, you really have. I'm always so impressed with what you do over at Volo City Kids Foundation. It's just unbelievable. We probably only have time for like one or two more questions. This, I guess, will probably be our last question. There's like a fun question that I have for you, but would you recommend focusing? So I believe that this is in context of peer-to-peer. So Megan asked, Floyd, would you recommend focusing on equipping donors of a certain gift level in a campaign like this? I'm not sure if I should start with lower level, 5K and under, or higher level donors.
So I assume they mean like for when you're working with a campaign, like do I focus more on a specific donor group? Okay, so I would say yes and no. It depends on what your goal is. So, for example, we are doing our 5K right now. And for our 5K, we focus specifically on more of like our smaller, lower level donors who kind of gave once or who came to an event. And I really tried to re-engage those people. However, if I'm working on an end of year campaign, I break it down. So my lower level donors, of course, we spend time on them, but I'm not spending all my time calling those people on the phone. I'm more so these people are getting my emails, they're getting our texts, and they're getting our social media engagement. But the people who gave 500 or 1,000 and above, those are the people who are getting calls. Those are the people who are getting, personal handwritten letters. Those are the people who are, actually getting that long attention, not because you don't care about everybody, but because you only have so much time. You know what I mean? And not all donors are created equally. Everyone has value. But when you're thinking about the long-term goal that you're trying to attain and reach, you got to, be able to distribute your time judiciously and see who will bring out the most benefit for you, bang for your buck. So that's what I do. I'm lucky enough, again, now that we have volunteers who can get on board. When I have a volunteer who's not on staff, or I have a part-time person who's working with me, I have them focus on, the smaller donor groups. But if you're a small team and you don't have all the other people helping you, focus on the people who you can really count on and who can give a bigger investment, and then create materials that you could spread out to the smaller groups. But don't try to feel like you have to reach everybody, because they're not going to all come back at the same rate.
Awesome. And last question for you. So Lorna said, what phenomenal energy. How have you managed your mental health and wellness at this time of restrictions and social isolation? It seems like you have a few tips you kind of mentioned earlier that
yes,
you do.
that I do the same thing. I have the same morning routine every single day. I wake up between like 5:30 and 6:30. I go on a run, I meditate, I journal, I pray, and then I start my day. Come on.
Amazing. Amazing. Floyd, this session has been incredible. I saw some comments saying that this was people's favorite session of the whole conference. So, thank you so much. This has been such an incredible time and so many great insights. And I think we can all agree we're taking away a lot from this.
Thank you. I'm so happy. And I put my contact information here as well. If you want to find me on social, it's Floyd Jones 3 on all of my social platforms. And here's my email here as well, but you'll get these slides at the end.
All right. Thanks, Floyd. So great having you. And yeah, awesome. Well, I'll be in touch soon, and we'll chat soon, I'm sure.
Absolutely. Have a good one, everyone.
Yeah, you too. Take care.